Welcome to our last geometry lesson on rotations. This is lesson 8. You'll remember in lesson 7 that we dealt with translations and reflections. So today is our last one. We're dealing with rotations. Rotation means turning a shape around a point through any given angle. And so in this class you'll be asked to rotate 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or 270 degrees, either around a point or around an origin. Now the distance from the center of your grid to any point on the shape stays the same regardless of how many rotations you're doing, and every point makes a circle around the center. The point about which you rotate the center is often labeled as point O, and that would be the origin. Okay, so on your grid, when you have it all set up, the cross section where you have your 0, 0 coordinate pair is considered your origin. And often where you center your rotation, if you're rotating around your point, you can often just label that point as O. So we can rotate objects point by any angle around any center point or around the origin, as I've mentioned. So the rotation may rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. So you need to be aware. So some texts and books and questions will ask you to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. Others will do it this way. We'll show you as a plus 90 degrees or a minus 90 degrees. So you need to know that a counterclockwise rotation, which means going this way, so the opposite way that a clock would go, is read as a plus 90 degrees. Now the reason it's a plus 90 at counterclockwise, because remember your quadrants go 1, 2, 3, 4 in a counterclockwise direction. So you're actually going from 1 to 4 counterclockwise, and so you're getting higher going counterclockwise. So the plus 90 degrees is a good way to remember that that is counterclockwise. So therefore a clockwise rotation going from 4, 3, 2, 1 would be a negative 90. Okay, so that could be a negative 180 or a negative 270 or even a negative 360. So this particular example is a rotation of 180 degrees around this plus right here. So this is the original shape here, and then rotated plus 180 degrees. So coming up we will show you a few ways to actually do these rotations. Okay, so this is our first rotation, and we are going to do this rotation around this point, so around our origin. And so if you take a look at this shape, I have the coordinates listed up here for them. So A is at negative 7, 7, B is at negative 3, 5, C is at negative 3, 3, and D is at negative 7, 3. So the first thing you want to do after you've drawn your original shape onto your grid is you take a piece of tracing paper and you put it right over top. Now what you want to do is copy down your intersect point right here, so your origin point. So this gives you an idea of how to rotate. So if you're going 90 degrees, you would bring this line to this line. If you're going 180 degrees, you would bring this line down here. If you're going to 270, you would take this line all the way around to here. So the first thing you want to do after you've drawn your intersect point in is trace down the points on your figure. So A, B, C, and D, so that they're on your paper. So if we were to say we want to take this to negative 90 degrees, so remember negative is a clockwise direction, so that means we would take our tracing paper and move it 90 degrees so that our intersect point here has moved that 90 degrees. Then the next thing that you do is just press down on these points, remove your paper, and you should be able to see where the indents are. Put your points in, and then connect your lines. Once you've connected your lines, you want to write your prime letters in, and then figure out the new coordinates. So there's our new shape, and so this would be A prime here, B prime, C prime, and D prime. Now we look at our coordinates. So A is now, this is 5, A is now 6, 7, and 6. B is 5 and 3. C is now 3 and 3. And D should be 3 and 7. 1, 2, 3, and 7. So if you take a look at these, there's a definite pattern. The numbers have switched order, so x has become y, and the sign has changed. So we've moved from a negative x quadrant to a positive x quadrant, and our values have essentially swapped. So our x coordinate was a 6, now our y coordinate is a positive 6. Our y coordinate was a 7, our x coordinate becomes a 7. Okay? So let's see what happens if we then take this shape here and we rotate it. So this last rotation that we just did, remember, was around the origin. So we rotated around this point. So now this time, let's take our shape. We'll take our rotated image, so our prime image, and we'll say let's rotate this shape around point B. Okay, so our B prime point. So instead of rotating around our origin, we're going to rotate around point B this time. So you do the same thing. Let's say we're going to take this to 180 degrees, a positive 180 degrees. So that means that we're going to turn this paper. So there's 90 degrees, and then this way would be 180 degrees around this point. So I just kept my pencil on point B and spun the paper around that point. So your point B's are going to maintain their space, and then we're going to mark these points again on our paper, lift them up, draw the shape in, so if this was B, this is going to be C prime prime, D with 2, and A with 2, and then we also have B with 2 down here. The reason we put 2 primes here is because this is the second transformation from this original image. So if we were then to move this image a third time, you would have 3 prime marks after it instead of just 2 or 1. So if we look, you can see that B is the same, and we've rotated the shape 180 degrees. So it's now essentially flipped over and the orientation has changed. So if we look at the coordinates for our third shape, then we would see that B is exactly the same, negative 3 and 5, because we moved around that point. So that point's obviously not going to change. A, though, becomes 3 and 0. C is 7 and 3. And D is 7 and negative 1. So there's no pattern to this one at all when you move around a point, only when you move around the origin. Okay, so you're going to be doing some of these in class tomorrow, so take a look at it, play with it a little bit if you want, but definitely make sure that you've taken some notes.